Hey everybody, I'm Greg Sowell, and this is Why Am I, a podcast where I talk to interesting people and try and trace a path to where they find themselves today. My guest this go around is Loose Ends, or more specifically, the co-founders Masey and Jen. These two are friends on opposite ends of the country who have joined forces, like robot cats coming together, to create something they call Loose Ends, which is a nonprofit that aims to ease grief, create community, and inspire generosity by matching volunteer handwork finishers with projects people have left unfinished due to death or disability. As you can imagine, it's a pretty powerful story. I am not unaffected by it. At any rate, I hope you enjoy this chat with Masey and Jen. Welcome, Loose Ends, to the Why Am I podcast, but Loose Ends is comprised of, there's two people at the head, right? You guys are kind of Siamese twins that kind of control the whole operation. And so we have Masey.
Hello.
And we have Jen.
Hey.
Nailed it, Jen. All right. So traditionally how I like to do this thing is basically, and I do this to strangers, believe it or not. I'll sit down and I'll talk to them for a second and I'll say, fairly rapidly, so who are you? Which is very polarizing. I find my people very quickly because some people are into that and some run away screaming. So let's see which kind you are. So Masey and Jen, who are you guys?
Which first? Who? You know what's helpful? If you tell us which one of us you want to talk first, because otherwise we will neither of us will talk waiting for the other two, or we'll both start talking over each other.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I will always start with you, Masey, because okay. You were deferring to Jen, and I don't want you to cheat and steal any of her items.
Okay. You don't want me to copy off her paper?
No. Good
okay.
night. All right, Masey. So you tell me
okay.
who you are.
I don't know. I mean, in what sense, right? In terms of Loose Ends Project, I'm a co-founder of the Loose Ends Project, and I'm a mom of 3 grown/teenagers. I do graphic design and marketing. And up until we started Loose Ends Project, I did marketing and graphic design primarily for nonprofits. And since starting Loose Ends Project a year ago, I've pretty much done that for 40 to 70 hours a week.
Holy cow.
And I'm a knitter, and I'm a, what else? I'm a mainer. I guess that's it. If I'm throwing labels on myself, that's what I got.
You say Mainer. I think you're like mainlining hard drugs. You're talking about from Maine, right?
Mainer. No, Mainer.
You're a Yankee.
I guess so. I mean, yeah I guess so.
That's what we Southerners call you people.
Okay.
Yankees.
Okay. Thank you. Yankee then.
All right, Jen, well, tell me a little bit about who you are.
So I'm a talker and a connector. I'm the kind of person, I think I'm sort of like you. I make eye contact a lot with people who decide that they're going to tell me everything about them. And that's really fun, but not great if you're walking with me and trying to get somewhere. I'm also a co-founder of the Loose Ends Project, and I've had many different jobs and careers. I've been a salesperson, I've been a trainer, mostly I've been an educator my whole life. I've been trained as a teacher, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, high school, college, taught science and math a lot. I've taught people how to knit. I have 2 children, one who is finishing high school this year and one who is finishing college this year. We hope, we think. And if she doesn't finish this year, it's totally fine. COVID was hard. I have a great guy that I'm married to who builds stuff for a living. And I don't think I would refer to myself as a Seattleite. I think if I have to identify, it's mostly I'm a New Jersey girl at heart. I grew up in New Jersey, and that side of my brain comes out a lot. It's fun because it's funny because I walked down the street and talked to people, made people talk to me, and I had one woman say, is this woman mentally ill or is she from the East Coast? And then she was like, oh, she's from the East Coast. That's why she's talking to me. She, for the record, was from the East Coast too, one town over from where I grew up. So,
Gotcha. So mental illness or East Coast, I get it. That's interesting. It
was the talking to strangers part.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that was like a stereotype for the East Coast.
Some people don't like that. And out here, we have something called the Seattle Freeze, which is there's just people don't talk to strangers that much. So if you do talk to strangers, it's can be kind of off-putting.
Interesting.
I don't care. It's still going to happen, but...
Well, the stereotype we have down here for like people up in that part of the country is that you're supposedly rude. Like you're too busy to talk to other people, but that is not the case. I see.
I don't think that's the case. I think I might offend people.
Boston?
I mean, Boston, they talk to you. It's they're not going to talk a long time, but they are going to talk. The people, I lived in Boston for a long time, and I think it is a kind, not nice type of a thing. They can be kind. They will take care of you, but they will not be nice while doing it. You experience nice but not kind out here on the West Coast. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm gonna go. And on the East Coast, it's more, oh my God, what a moron. Why would you do? How did you get yourself into that? Oh, get out of my way. I'll fix it for you. Like that's more how I think of it. And I don't think North and South, but I think Southerners think North and South more to the thing.
Yeah, for
sure. I
sure.
was in Texas once, and they kept saying, "You're from up north." I'm like, "I'm from back east, And they're like, "Up north," and I was like, "Back east." So,
yeah, it's pretty much down here. It's us and them, right? So if you're not from the South,
it's really only us.
Everybody's
we're trying to change all of that.
Yeah,
project is trying to change all of that.
We all live on the same planet, and we're all trying to live and breathe with the same earth, water, like there's no us and them. It's us and not us, like not us being like rocks.
Yeah, I know. For me, people are people. Everywhere I go, I find kind people. Some just have interesting accents. That's all.
Right.
All right. Well, you guys have a lot of interesting stuff going on here. So, common threads. I'm looking for those. You're both parents of teenage kids about to embark on college or get out of college. I'm actually in that same boat too. I've got 3 teenagers. One's going to be going to college next year, and pretty terrifying. Sounds like your kids survived COVID. Mine. They kind of lost a whole year of school. I'm assuming the same was for you guys, right?
Yeah. It was a bummer of a year to start. 3 years to say the least.
Yeah, we figured it out, but it was different for everybody, I guess.
I think everybody lost in some kind of way. My kid was a senior in high school when it happened, and she lost out on all those senior things and closure with her friends. My youngest was an 8th grader, so he lost out on, finishing up middle school. Other people who have little babies, they lost out on socializing. There's a lot. I mean, people just lost a lot of time and community.
Yeah. I was thinking a lot of people found stuff too, though, in those times, and probably kind of in the circle you guys run in, like with crafting and stuff. Because I know a lot of people that picked up new and interesting hobbies. And so I'm assuming, I have the feeling you guys have been doing kind of the knitting and crafting and stuff for a really long time, right? You're not newcomers.
Yeah. I've been knitting since my grandmother taught me when I was 6, and I've been coming back and forth to it for years. I taught myself how to crochet out of a book from the library. And I've done like cross stitch. I've done a lot of stuff. Just I need to keep my hands busy.
How about you, Masey?
I started crocheting when I was a teeny little thing, like probably preschool, before school, and then I learned to knit in high school. And knitting, I love. Like I haven't been able to stop. But you're right. We are seeing a lot of our finishers who are signing up are saying that they taught themselves how to do different crafts during the pandemic because they were home with YouTube, and they would order stuff. And it would get shipped to their house. And I think a lot of the craft stores that were open during the pandemic were considered, because in the beginning when we thought that cloth masks were enough, fabric stores were open as like essential stores, right? They were considered okay to stay open. So a lot of people were picking up crafts, right? Or at least that was the case up here.
Yeah, I think people all over were doing crafts and
teaching themselves online.
Trying to stay sane.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, another common thread you guys have, you're both co-founders, or I guess I'll just call you guys founders. It feels weird because you're both here. So it's, the representation of the dream team is here. So tell me about Loose Ends and how that got started. And honestly, I'm curious what it means to each of you individually.
Jen, you want me to go first? Okay. So Loose Ends Project is something that we were thinking about since before the pandemic, but just as an idea of someday, maybe to try it out after having finished projects for our friends who lost their moms. We both had that experience, and multiple times, and finished those projects for our friends. And then last summer, Jen and I were hanging out together on the West Coast, and with a mutual friend who had recently lost her mom. And we were going through her mom's bag of things, her craft things, and just kind of sorting through stuff for her and trying to help her figure out what to keep and what to donate and what was what in there. And we came upon two blankets that her mom had begun for our friends' brothers. And Jen and I were going to each take one of those and finish them at that time, but neither of us love to crochet. We're really knitters, and at that
I was willing to do it for Patty, but it was going to be there was going to be a lot of hate in that.
Right.
You don't know the friendship would survive it.
The energy of frustration might have been in there a little bit more than people. And I think at that time we were thinking, well, we would do this, but we also have this other idea we've been playing with for a few years, just kind of waiting for the right time. And it seemed like a good time to sort of try it out and see if there was any interest in trying to figure out if there was a way to match strangers who knew a craft with projects that needed a finisher. So we already knew what it felt like to do that for someone that we loved, but to bring it kind of to the next level and have strangers start to do this for one another, it just was very appealing to try to see if we could make that work and to see what kind of interest there was in that. And I personally love getting people to do things for each other. I love it. Like, not in a tricky way, but like to just try to like make that pathway towards being generous to other people easier, like open that up so that it's not complicated. And was there a way for us to try to make a tool where people could maybe try this out? And so shortly after that, we went our separate ways back to our homes, and just for kicks, we made a little website, the little website that we still have. And put in some Google forms and just tried to start to fish around and see if anyone was interested. Like, who would sign up to become a volunteer and who would maybe submit a project to get finished. And were there, we didn't have any funding or anything to do it. So we just tried to get creative with how we could try to get in front of people and ask if they were interested. And so
we were in a couple, we put some stuff on Instagram and we talked to some people and reached out to some guilds, and a couple of yarn store owners had heard about us and had talked about us on their Facebook page and things like that. And then, just like trying to get word of mouth. And by just doing that, we got about 150 crafters in Maine and Seattle saying, yeah, I could sign up for that. And then we have my hairdresser. Her daughter is the weekend news anchor at King 5, which is, her name is Madison Wade. And she wanted to do a story. I asked if she wanted to do a story on us because it seemed like a good idea. And then when that happened, we had an influx. I think we had 500 finishers, and we thought that's pretty spectacular, and probably got another 20 projects from that. And then we did a local story in Maine where we got more Mainers signing up, and a reporter here in Washington State saw the story and wrote an article for the Washington Post, and that kind of kicked off where we are today. I think it's Caitlin's fault. Yeah.
Yeah. Caitlin. Anything. Yeah. So that started the ball barreling down the hill. Yeah.
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 And I mean, and it's amazing. I mean, now we have 16,000 finishers.
Holy
easily
cow.
In 58 countries. We have matched projects in Scotland, in England, in Australia, in New Zealand. I think we've got one. In Canada, we've got a bunch. Early on, we had a woman from the Czech Republic call us to talk to us, and she did a story, and it was when you Google translated, it was like Granny's knitting needles flying for you. What was it?
Yeah, it was something like that. It didn't make
a lot of sense.
The translation didn't make sense. It probably made sense
I'm sure.
But
She was, because we found out there's only 3 yarn stores in all of the Czech Republic. That was horrifying to me to find out. But yeah, it's been, it's a nice story. People like hearing about nice things that people are doing for each other, right? It's after all the stuff that's going on, all the division and all of the angry rhetoric, you turn on the TV and then Lester Holt says, "Oh, and then these 2 nice ladies started this project, and here's a sweater someone knitted for their grandson, and it didn't get finished, but now it's finished because some stranger finished it for him." It's a reminder that there's people out there that are willing to do some nice things for you. All you have to do is ask.
Yeah. And one thing we're finding is that it's not just a small thing. Like, craft is everywhere. Like, it will match people who do knitting, crochet, sewing, needlepoint, quilting. I mean, you said that you make leather costumes, right? Like, if you were to drop dead, we could probably find a finisher to finish whatever that costume is right now that you're working on. Like, there are people who have signed up with every craft.
Got a lot of Ren Fair people too.
What's that?
There are a lot of Ren Fair people who participate in like Ren Fair or cosplay and things like that who craft.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're finding that crafting is, I mean, it's 58 countries have signed up, and people from 58 countries, from every state in the US, from every Canadian province. It's not, you can't classify crafters as any political, party or any religion or any of the things that are separating and dividing people don't really matter.
Yeah. I mean,
doing.
If you think about it, like even the American flag can be polarizing these days, and a rainbow can be polarizing.
Yeah.
Knitting isn't polarizing. People knit all kinds of stuff. People craft all kinds of stuff. And nobody can claim it as just one person's thing. The people who do these crafts come from all over the place. It's amazing.
Everywhere. Yeah, and they're doing things for one another without any regard for what the other person's beliefs are in any way. Like, they're really meeting each other in a place of respect for loss, and a desire to bring comfort to that person and to finish the craft that their loved one began. And it isn't about anything else. And we don't even know what that stuff is. Like, we don't ask those questions of people who sign up. It's really just meeting each other in this place. And there's so much craft, and so many people understand how meaningful it is to have this tangible thing that their loved one was making for them, like finished. So
yeah,
here's this tangible piece of their loved one that they intended to make for them, with their DNA all over it, right? They were touching that the whole time they were making it. And there's this kind of respect for that we haven't had to try to make. It's just people automatically have. It's been really, really cool to see.
So I think we dove in. Interesting. I got so many notes, too many notes. But one thing you said, it was a project, but to me, it feels like more of a movement. You've got 16,000 finishers, 58 countries. It seems so much bigger than to call it a project. But one thing I noticed is we never gave the elevator pitch of what Loose Ends actually is and does. We jumped right in and just started talking. But so we're using words that people have no idea, like what a finisher is. Right? So give us the elevator pitch.
Okay. Loose Ends Project. It's an organization where finishers of craft projects are matched with projects that have been left behind by people who have either passed away or who can't finish their handwork due to like health decline or disability. And so Jen and I matchmake the finishers and the projects to each other, so that they can get completed and then returned back to the family or friends they were being initially made for. Yeah, that's the elevator pitch.
And these are the things we do not do. We do not do things like, if you just decide I can't finish this. That's not there's a lot of work in progress that I have that I'm never going to finish, and I'm going to leave a note with it like, don't bother. This is not for you to finish. I gave up. And we also, a lot of people are like, I've got all these projects, and you just finish them and give them to somebody. We don't do that either, because our finishers are taking time out of what they would be crafting to finish something meaningful. They're not going to just do something that gets thrown away.
Right.
Because they've come to us because they want to help someone who's grieving. And there's lots of places that'll take donations of stuff and, things like that if you don't want them back.
Do you guys still finish projects now, or do you spend most of your time just with the matchmaking piece?
Yeah, the latter.
Yeah, just matchmaking. In fact, I've got a sweater that my friend Nikki asked me to patch for her that she gave me 2 years ago that I'm probably never going to do. So I'm going to have to give that back to her. Find her a tailor.
Just calling yourself out right here on air.
Right now.
I know. It's good to be honest.
We have about a 1 to 12 ratio of projects to finishers right now. We have about 16,000 finishers. We can't really, it's harder to quantify how many projects, but probably between 1,200 and 2,000 somewhere.
Wow.
So that means that there are like 14,000 people waiting for a project to do, and everybody's waiting with various degrees of patience. Some people could wait forever and they're just happy to be part of, the talent pool. And some people are anxious to get started. And so we're all throughout this past year, as we've been growing, sometimes fast, sometimes more slowly. After a big press thing, we'll get a lot of people all at once. It still always winds up being that same kind of 1 to 12 proportion of projects to finishers. So,
and it has to do with the people who leave these things behind. They might be the only crafter they know. Sometimes it's an isolated thing. There are people who go to knitting groups and quilting bees and things like that, but there's also people who do these crafts on their own, and they might not. Their families might not recognize what they left behind. A lot of times in the past, I've been given bags of somebody's stuff, and because I'm the one knitter, somebody knows because I knit in public a lot. And you'll go through those bags and find half-finished projects, and that's when I would finish stuff for people in the past. But it just speaks to, the crafters know what they see. They know that these things are all around us. The non-crafters are the ones that might not recognize what it is. So it's harder for them to understand what it is. So when they hear a podcast and that's not craft related, and it's somebody who's not a crafter, when those kind of articles go out, it helps people say, hey, I think I've got a bag of some stuff my mom left behind. Sometimes people just have the pieces, and one of our volunteers just recently didn't tell me this story, but just recently posted that when her mother passed away, she was working on a needlepoint pillowcase for her daughter-in-law, Amy. Posted this, and yes, Amy.
I did not know that until
I know. I didn't know either. Amy is our hall monitor on Facebook. She is the person who makes sure that people are playing nice on Facebook, and it's amazing to have her because we look at Facebook every day to just check on submissions and things like that. But Amy's the one who's like, yeah, you can't post that here. Oh, hey, I'll help you. But Amy's passed away, and Amy finished the project and they gave it to her sister-in-law for Christmas after her mom had died, and many tears were shed. And so people do this, but not everybody. So there's these projects that people are holding and they just don't know what to do with them, and we're this thing that they find and help. And then there's other stuff where, so the projects, all the people who make the projects are not always the best knitters and crocheters in the world, but what they do is satisfying to them. So I know a lot of crochet. I know a lot of potholder makers and dishcloth makers, and chevron Afghan makers. There are also projects that are just sublime and just these like works of art. But the one thing all of these have in common is there's somebody who wants that project finished because it's a tangible representation of their loved one. And that's why we do this.
So, and I know this experience is going to be different for every single person, and I'm assuming it's very different for the both of you, but I'm curious, I'm willing to bet the feeling you get is maybe not as profound, but probably in the same ballpark of when you're a finisher and you finish an item and see kind of that completed object reaching its final destination, over to the person. I'm just curious if you could kind of maybe describe what that feels like to finish something and see it go to its new home. Masey, go first. Always waiting.
Well, I will say that I don't think that because Jen and I are kind of back here a little bit, matching. We do read stories as they come in. We do read about, we do see some of the initial back and forth emails between finishers and project owners after we connect them. But after that, we kind of step back and we let that relationship happen separate from us. And then we'll get updates here and there. And then at the end of the project, we get informed that it's finished. And then when we send out, we have a survey that we send out, and that's kind of where we hear what happened. So we're not right in it with the finishers the whole time. We kind of hear it in the beginning, and then we kind of hear the end, and we'll get pictures. And I will say it is very moving most of the time, to witness the beginning of this relationship that's starting, and to just as witnesses to, like, I guess to read and to see how meaningful it can be for someone, especially someone who's had a terrible loss, and especially if it's been more recent, or a child, or a sister, or, it can be really, really emotional. And I mean, Jen and I often cry when we read some of these things, because you can't not if you're a human being,
And I thought that I would be a nerd to the feeling. Like, you get a lot of thank you so much, this is so wonderful, this is so great, but like, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I have to hold it at an arm's length a little bit, because it's just so much. It's everybody's loss, and you hear how horrible it is to miss your mom, or how horrible it is to miss your child, and it's a lot to take in. But it is lovely to see these people reach out to just reach out to a stranger and fix it. And I have a lot of finishers who will say how they didn't expect to be so touched by it, and in finishing the project and handing it back, they get very emotional too, which is amazing. We have had some that made me laugh, though. I think the ugly blanket that Grandma made for everyone was my favorite. We had somebody who's like, Grandma made an ugly blanket for everyone except for Bob, and Bob's was half done. Can you make? And I'm hoping that they told Grandma that the blankets were ugly. I think they were cherished, but
yeah, there are some funny things like, can you please take this person's name off of this Christmas stocking because they're divorced now, and we would like you to put this person's name on instead. And everybody like, okay.
Elizabeth said to us, you want Diane on there.
Yeah, there's definitely some comedy. I would say that more than that, there's just it is sad. I mean, it is often very sad and happy. I mean, the connection that's being made and the finishing of the project is a way of, it's very healing. But for me anyway, and Jen mentioned holding things kind of at arm's length. I think because we're going through, a couple thousand projects, we aren't internalizing all of that grief ourselves, but there's no way that we can't be affected by by a lot of the stories, right? Like there are a lot of stories and we have to read them in order to match them well. And, people who, just are life stuff that is just tough, and moms who are killed, or, just, it's not all stuff that happened a long time ago and you found a bag with, that's that's, and not even to downplay what maybe something from 30 or 40 years ago, because that can be just as strong of a feeling. But yeah, there are some like real tragic things. And I think that we are witnessing what we're hoping is a little bit of an alleviation of that pain just by knowing that there's a stranger who cares about it, about you, you know, like, and wants to try to bring you that like tangible piece of your loved one back.
I would say community building is one of the things. I mean, we are in no way grief counselors, or I mean, both of us are very lucky to have both of our parents alive. I, until very recently, had a grandparent alive. Our children are fine, but there is a certain amount of community. I mean, the community that we're building is amazing. We've got these people who are just saying, I want to help. And because of the way we're matching people nearby. Sometimes we can't because things are too hard to do and we need to have a specialist do them. But for the most part, people are finding people in their neighborhood that they might not have ever talked to that are willing to help. And that's just that's a unifying experience. That there's helpers everywhere. There's people who want to help, and it's sometimes really hard to ask for help or to find it if you don't know what you're looking for. So that's the beauty of what we're doing is we're finding the help for people that they might not be able to ask for themselves. They're asking for some closure, and we're trying to give it to them. And because we have a unique set of skills, like, I don't know, it's not quite a taken set of skills, but we have skills that we can identify projects. We know how we can kind of gauge how long it's going to take to do something, and we can sort of see how given what people tell us about their experience and what they do, we can see if something's a good fit. So I think we're getting better at it as we go too.
Well, I know you both got started finishing projects. You said kind of independently, you guys ended up doing this, like finishing for some friends. Do you still like the satisfaction or maybe just the feeling you got from finishing for your friends? Do you still get a little bit of that whenever you make a connection for somebody?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So even though you don't get to finish today, like, well, I mean, it's almost like tenfold. So before, you might, like the time that you were investing to finish one project, you might be able to make connections for 100 projects, right?
Oh yeah, we're making the connections and we're making those things get finished for sure. So I would say yes, but for me, for instance, I was finishing my friend Susan's mom's sweater. And I remember she passed away during the pandemic. And I remember holding her mom's work. And it did feel different than matching people on my computer. And I can intellectually know that I'm matching thousands of projects to finishers, and they're all going to get done. But there was something that felt really sacred about holding this woman's work and finishing. And I remember talking to her, you know, I didn't know her in real life, but I was like, I'm going to do this for you. You know, I don't know if she heard or not, you know, but we don't know. But there was something about like touching her knitting and trying to finish it the way I thought she wanted to finish it. You know, and then my friend was like, that color is not doing it for me. So we dyed it and it looks amazing now. But yeah, I think that we're able to like exponentially make these happen much faster by just having us sitting at our laptops all day. Yeah. But there is something that does feel
There's something about holding an object that somebody else made that's not there anymore. I mean, it feels different. We were just talking to a woman who had the privilege of being at the Holocaust Museum, and she was looking at knit objects that had been made, because during the Holocaust, some people were forced to knit and crochet to make items
In the camp.
out of materials that were left behind by force. Like this was not an act of, love. And she was talking about holding the objects and how powerful it was. And I can't imagine, like, I can only, because of this experience, I can imagine like what that was like. And I think I started crying as soon as she talked about it, because there's, for lack of a better word, there's an energy that comes off of it, right? That,
for sure.
Yeah, and I'm assuming there's almost like a weight inherent to an object that has that much emotion connected to it, right? That you could, when you put it in your hands, you feel that weight.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
That's interesting. It's, for me in my life, I was a very shy, introverted person, and I avoided crowds and all that stuff as a young person. I'm not that person anymore. I've summarily beaten that out of myself. But for a time there, I was a wedding photographer, and it was this magic environment where, for one day, with this camera in my hand, suddenly I had this excuse to talk to people and become very close in these specially charged environments where I could, I could just almost become part of somebody's family, like instantaneously. I was thinking, this almost sounds like a magic totem, like when you accept this half-finished object from somebody to make this instant emotional connection with them and their family. It seems magical almost.
Yeah, I would have to agree. It gives you, it's a privilege, and that's what I'm struck by. We don't give our finishers talking points. They sign up and they say, I can knit, I can crochet. And we give them some tips, like, if you reach out to somebody who has an object and they don't talk, they're hard to get a hold of. Grief is like that. It's a push and a pull, and sometimes they go away. We tell them to, make sure they take pictures along the way and let the person know what's going on. And we give them a couple of tips, like put in lifelines, which is a string that stops something from unraveling, so that you can stop it where the person, so you don't lose any of the original crafter stuff. But what I am struck by is when I do connect these people online, I get to see them respond to each other, and then I let them go. Almost to a one, the finishers are always like, I'm just honored. I'm so honored that I can do this. And they put it in this, they give it such reverence, like, this is such a special thing that I'm being asked to do. And they really take it as that, which is why we do have people who are like, I want my project, give me my project now. And it's like, because they want to be in that situation where they can give back to somebody. We don't always have an opportunity to do something for someone else that is something they truly need. How many of us have said to somebody whose family member has passed away or is going through a hard time, hey, just let me know if I can do anything for you. And that seems hollow, even though you mean it, but you couldn't think of anything. So you're leaving it to that person to think of something. This is something that we know that they had a need for, and we can fix. And it's kind of it's special in that, because I don't think we always see what people need.
And Greg, you mentioned being an introvert and having this opportunity behind the lens to be part of this day, right? Like part of this beautiful experience. And what we're noticing too is that giving people this opportunity to donate their time to an individual that they are going to get to know a little bit, at least, if not in person, they're at least going to be emailing them. All of those introverted crafters who don't necessarily who might be in their happiest happy place, sitting on the couch with their knitting on their lap or their quilt or whatever, maybe don't want to walk into a big crowded event where they might be able to volunteer, but still deserve that that feeling of having given back to their community in some way, and it feels good to everybody. Even introverts like it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it gives you a chance to, as an introvert, give your skills. Like they're, there's a low barrier to activity.
You don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to go and do the extrovert thing of going and asking the person what you do. I am not an introvert even a little bit. But so there's an article, like a science article that's going around right now that says talking to strangers makes you happy. And the article is about this psychologist who found that when she said hello to the hot dog vendor on campus when she was getting her PhD, she felt happier because she had this little low risk interaction with a stranger. And this is a big risk interaction with a stranger. You're taking something really tangible, but it's those interactions that actually spike our happiness. It gives us a spike of oxytocin. I think that's the right word. It's the hormone that releases in your head that, like a dopamine flush that makes you just like feel happy. You got to do something good for someone else. This is akin to that, but even more intense because it's such a personal thing. And, I think there are a lot of people who don't have, maybe they live really, really disconnected from a lot of people. Maybe whether it be isolation due to geography or just isolation due to the fact that they don't know, they're introverted and they don't talk to a lot of people. So it's, I think we do give introverts a chance to feel that, where, extroverts are just going around talking to people all day long and making them tell them things, which I do.
I love the idea of that. I remember some research that I saw one time that they performed at a college campus, and they had a bunch of envelopes that had $5, $10, and $20 in them. And so half of the students, they would measure like, how happy are you today? And then they would give them an envelope, and the envelope either said, spend this on yourself or spend it on somebody else. And then they came back the next day and measured them, like who got happier, who stayed the same, who went, I guess negative. And they universally found that people who spent the money on others increased their happiness across the board, whether it was $5, $10, $20, it didn't matter. Just the fact that they were doing something kind for somebody else increased their happiness. And I found that to be so true for myself. But yeah, like I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were, the old saying of, you got to fill your cup first and make sure that you're taken care of before you give to other people. And I said, you know what? My cup's pretty much always full. Nobody ever asked me for anything, but it always makes me feel so good to help others. So the idea that there's this system by which I can go in there and, potentially help other people when I get, while I'm 6'3", bald, and I got a giant mustache, people aren't clamoring to come and talk to me. I guess I give standoffish vibes, but for those of us that do like helping, I think it's so cool that you've engineered this way for the outcasts to still get that feeling too.
Not outcasts, just differently abled. I mean, it's really like, it's just people that it wouldn't occur to them, I think that's the response we've gotten from people has been so like, you tell people and they start crying and you're like, oh, sorry. It's something that everybody can do. And I think that just because you're not someone who talks to strangers doesn't mean you should be left out of doing good. So join us. You make costumes. You can make
I know. I just wrote down in my notebook, I wrote, Greg, finisher, question mark?
Oh my days. You guys are always on the prowl, I see.
No.
Well,
all right.
Well, do you envision a time where you guys are so busy that you step back even a little bit further and you have people do the connection piece for you? Or is that like so important for you to keep in between the two of you?
Yeah. So no, we're going to get too big for that. But the hope is that we'll be able to eventually, once we have enough funding, that we'll be able to hire somebody to help. And we're already at the point where we could use that kind of help because but I think that Jen and I will always at least, I was talking about this past weekend. Like maybe we just take 1 or 2 a day each and let somebody else do the rest, just so we can keep, kind of stay into the heart of it all, which is where all these stories are and where all the projects are, but at the same time be able to grow the way we want this to grow. And it's right now just 2 of us and our amazing board, and Amy in our Facebook. So that's it. So we are hopeful that we'll be able to get some help with that, but I don't think we'll ever completely step away from that part of it because it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. It's really hard. I think it's important to stay connected to that kind of like loving energy that's really at the center of all of this stuff. And if we were completely separated from the stories and the matching, I think it would be a little bit of a loss for us to not have that. Plus it fuels our fatigue. Like it fuels our long weeks to be able to know like why we're doing this. We're doing this for these people, for all of the people involved. And that's why we're spending so many long nights and weekends and
and we're also coming up with better ways to do it. Yeah. We initially thought we could make like a marketplace, like go help these people. But I think, and as we get easy, right now it's very manual process. And I think as it becomes a less manual process, it will be something that I'll feel more comfortable with people doing a little bit more. It's right now because it's so manual, I don't really feel comfortable just dumping it on somebody else. It needs to be something that we think about and make sure it's done correctly.
Yeah, for sure. Quality control and you guys have a system and a method, and I can understand the reticence to let any of that slip, as it were.
And yeah.
But as we get bigger and as we're in different countries with different languages, we're going to need to figure out how to do that in a culturally sensitive way too. I mean, we had somebody making a flyer for us to speak to the Thai community, and the comment was made, I found some different pictures of stuff that they do that would make more sense because there's some things that people handcraft in our community that might not be out in the rest of the community. And that was something I hadn't thought about. So it's, as we grow, we want to make sure we're including other people that we didn't think about. And how do we grow? Because we don't know all these different things too. So I don't think we're ever going to give up the hands-onness, but I think there's going to be a time where we're going to
share it.
Yeah, just more hands.
For sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Something you were talking about, I don't know whether this would be a good idea or a bad idea, but we were talking about the whole process of you connecting people, and then you've got your finisher connecting with, what do you call them? The finishee? The requester? What do you guys call that person?
Project owner.
Project owner.
A little.
Yeah, like I could envision a podcast or a video series where you follow that journey between a finisher and a project owner, and kind of the correspondence, and then ultimately the culmination where it comes together. Oh my God, dude. I don't know that I could handle watching or listening to one of those every week, but when I feel like having a good cry, I could definitely see.
That's our dream.
Experiencing something.
That podcast is our dream. We've written it down on our business plan, and we're hoping to be able to do that someday when we are not just 2 people working 70 hours a week already.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, the holy cow, would that be powerful?
Aw, thanks for saying so. I think so too. I would really want to be able to do that too. I mean, we're dreaming about that.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, because obviously from helping you guys grow, it would be great for marketing and stuff like that. But just the things you already talked about, how you give basic advice for dealing with people who are grieving and stuff like that, I think it could be amazing for other people to see that.
And know that advice didn't come from us. We've got people who are grief counselors who give us ideas for how to word things and things like that. Just so you don't think we're playing pseudo psychiatrists.
No,
we are
no. not. What I've learned is everybody is a conglomeration of everybody who's been kind enough to give you advice or teach you something, right? So, I didn't figure you guys invented it all on your own, but
Okay.
It's nice. It's nice that you have collected these things and are giving back, and I could see that as being something cathartic and educational at the same time. And I've heard a lot of people say, I met this person who went through the same thing as me, and it really helped me. Or, man, you were talking about grief. Somebody I met just recently, Liz, said when she has somebody, a friend of hers or family member or something like that passes away, the person that they go and visit, they say, instead of, if I can do anything for you, help me, she offers, can I cry with you? Can we just, sit down? And I was like, holy cow. Like, that is huge. It was like, I want to be able to do that. I don't know that I can always handle that, but, just small little pieces like that, I think for people to hear are amazing. And you don't just magically learn them, right? Those have to be kind of donated to you by somebody kind enough to give you that advice.
But everybody can learn that. That's the thing. I think people. Yeah. I think that it's not that people are born with empathy or they're born without it. You can learn empathy. You can expand those muscles, and it just takes some time.
Well, yeah. And also, maybe not everyone's a crafter, but everybody's going to lose a loved one, right? Or has. And so once that happens to you, you know what it feels like. And so you automatically know better how to be with somebody else who's going through it, right? Like, unfortunately, right? It's just part of the fun of being a person. And we are noticing that a lot of the times when we make these connections between finishers and project owners, the project owner is the person who comes with the story. Like, my loved one was making this, and this is something they tell us about that person and their relationship with that person. But what the finishers are bringing is that same kind of stories. Like, they're bringing the same stories because they're also people who have lost people, like, because they're people, and that's what we have to do, right? So we're seeing a lot of times when we make these connections that finishers will, as soon as we connect, they'll email and say, introduce themselves and say, this is why I relate to you. Like, I lost my mother too, in the same way. We're finding a lot of people are really, it's not like a finisher and a project owner that are in a different place. Like, a lot of times they've had a very similar experience, And I don't remember why I started ranting about that. But learning empathy. Unfortunately, we learn a lot about how to love each other that way by losing people we love, right?
Yeah,
it definitely grows.
Yeah, I think some people are experiential learners. They have to go through it to know it, which is unfortunate. But it's how some people learn. I learn that way sometimes, and it once they've gone through it and they get it, they're like, oh, of course I want to help. And we do find them getting a lot of closure out of it. I don't know if they get closure. They're getting some reward from the experience.
I think in regards to experiential learners, the lessons stick the best when I experience them, when I do that with my own hands, or I do those sort of things. I'm a little neurodivergent, and sometimes I don't always know how to react to certain situations and things like that. And so usually the best way I know how to react is when somebody tells me the correct reaction, and then I get practice, and then it becomes part of me. And so sometimes the big things, the important things, if I can hear it from somebody else, I can learn it, right? And then I'm better prepared. As weird as that sounds,
No, it makes total
sometimes
sense.
that works
Yeah.
for me.
No, I mean, if you look at people with, I used to, as a teacher, we had people who were on the spectrum and had different places on the spectrum where they were, and they were given scripts a lot of times. Like, what do you say when someone says this? What do you say? And those kids had so much empathy. It turned out, and it was when the people went off the scripts that they got into trouble, because not even people who aren't on the spectrum don't always stay on the scripts, and even though we've taught these other people that this is appropriate, when so it's interesting, because we spend so much time telling neurodivergent people to be normal, and this is the normal behavior, and when they get into trouble is when other people aren't doing the normal thing. So it's not really whatever what we decide is normal.
Yeah, or unoffensive is usually what I aim for with my kids as well. So so you don't always have to respond in the way people anticipate, as long as you don't make it worse. Let's shoot for that. See if we can go that route.
I think not making it worse is a really good way to be. Like, okay, will this make it worse or better? If it's not gonna make it better or not impact it in a bad way, that's when you want to do it. Teenagers.
Yeah, they're quite literally insane. Mine are anyway. I'll tell
you need
what.
a prefrontal cortex that's fully formed, and they do not have that. So
I know, and I've got 3 boys, so I feel like it's never going to happen. But I digress. You guys have been so generous with your time today. Obviously, that's kind of your thing, is generosity with your time. I don't know why I would say it like I expected anything different. But right here at the end, I like to, obviously, thank you for your time. You guys are amazing. Like, to me, the greatest gift anybody can ever give me is their time, because it's the one resource, that's finite. And if there are some ways, I have a feeling, I know a couple of them at least, how you'd like people to interact with you online, or anything you'd like to promote, what would that look like? What would that be? Where do you want people to go? How do you want people to find you?
Well, we have a website, which is theloosendsproject.org. They can come and see us there, and there they can sign up to be a finisher. They can submit a project, or if they feel inclined, they can donate. We use a platform called Zephy, which is a nonprofit platform where you can make a charitable donation, and there is no charge to the charity. So we like to talk about them when we have a chance, because they provide us with using credit cards without any fees, which is a big deal for people who get donations of $5-10 at a time. So those are all ways. If you know of some grants that that you think would work for an organization like us, that'd be great. We'd love to hear from you. If you know how to write in a different language and you think that a flyer needs to be made, we are grassroots people. Whenever someone says, what?
I would say, yeah, also follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Ravelry.
Yes. We're trying to get be more present on Ravelry, which is it's like Facebook for knitters and crocheters and fiber artists. So it's the world's largest database of all things fiber arts, and it's free. I like to remind people that it is us. It's Masey and I and our board and Amy and our web developer team that is donating all their time too. So if when I get an email that says you should do this, I say, that's great. How can you help us do that? Because
We're two people.
This is a group project, people. Everybody pick up a spade. Let's go. I mean, I had a friend who taught me this. She's like, when are they coming out with this? When are they? And this woman that I met, she runs a 5-hour art scene. She's like, I remind people that they is 4 people. So when they get to it, they're going to do it. So I remind people that they is me and Masey and a couple of very nice volunteers and 16,000 finishers. But, you know, if we have people who've come to us and said things like, I'm a librarian. How can I help you? I know how to research grants. I was like, do it. Do that for us. That would be great. You know, there's so many people who want to help. All you have to do is reach out and explain to me how you can be helpful, and I will find you something to do. I promise. I promise there's lots to do.
Excellent. Well, guys, again, appreciate you. And let me hit stop on all these recordings real quick.